My name is Rich Schmidt. We're here with Lukas Papagiannis. It's June 27th, 2025, and we're at Wines of Kings in Portland. Lukas, thank you so much for joining us today.
Thanks for having me.
First question, why wine?
Why wine? It kind of came out of my interests finishing high school. I was quite interested in chemistry. I was a science major. I was always a good drawer, and art was always something I was interested in, but I kind of decided to pursue sciences towards the end of high school, and then I took a year off post-high school as most young Australians do. We like to go to Europe, and so I did that. I was challenged by revisiting a French exchange student that I hosted when I was 16 in high school. I went to France, and I was disappointed that I couldn't communicate as much as I'd wanted to after I'd been to France when I was 16. And I think that spurred a day, I want to learn a language as well when I go back to study. So when I finished that gap year and I went to uni, I decided sciences. The town that I'm from offers the Bachelor of Viticulture and Oenology, and it's quite highly regarded in terms of the sciences there, and I wanted an applied science. It was chemistry focused. I was interested in alcohol. So I was like, there's a lot of boxes ticked. So it wasn't an overwhelming emotional attachment to it. It just felt like, I'll try this, see how it works. And I added a Diploma of Languages at the time. I think I was previously enrolled in a Bachelor of Arts, Bachelor of Science, and yeah, I just wanted a little more direction. So I chose a path a little blindly. And I've been enjoying it so far. So yeah, that's what initially led to wine. And then I think there's some other factors that kind of affirmed the decision. My mother has a very good nose. I think I adopted her schnoz, and yeah, just pick up on senses quite well. And I don't think I really realized that until we were doing sensory studies around the second year. And yeah, just things were quite obvious or loud. So I was like, oh, I think my sensory is kind of heightened in certain ways. My palate was not very good in the beginning. That took so long to develop. I think it was by third year I was comfortable discerning like a tannin profile or a body. And yeah, so it didn't come naturally, and it wasn't like anything I was nurtured into, I would say. A tertiary element would be like my uncle planted a vineyard in the late 90s as migrant Greeks like to farm and pickle olives. And so it was a, 4-hectare block bordered by olive trees in McLaren Vale, just 40 minutes south of Adelaide. And yeah, we would help out as a big Greek family does. There's 5 siblings on my dad's side, 3 on my mother's. So when we congregated, we were about 80 or so. And yeah, you do the lamb on the spit out at the farm, and then just, yeah, some of that kind of village Greek tradition brought to Australia. So yeah, my upbringing was very Australian Greek. And yeah, growing up would obviously have to help pick grapes, put some nets out, minor things like that. So I had some skin in the game, I guess. I don't know. Yeah.
Talk about life before school a little bit. You mentioned growing up in Australia. Tell us where you grew up and tell me about kind of just early life before school.
Yeah, before school.
Before university.
Oh, okay. I'm like, I don't remember beyond 5, pre-5. Yeah, Adelaide, hometown in South Australia. Very, very hot and dry. I've got to convert. I don't think winters really drop below 55, but I was just seeing some Australians recently, and they corrected me, no, it's been getting down lower the last few winters, but I don't remember that when I lived there. They were pretty warm. I want to say like 10 degrees Celsius minimums. I think that's...
Nobody knows. Nobody knows.
Yeah. Yeah, hot, dry, Mediterranean-esque. We have a little peninsula protected by Kangaroo Island from the Southern Ocean, so we get a lot of lovely, docile, city-style beaches. No big waves, no big swell. So it's a lovely place to grow up. Education was really great. I was fortunate. Yeah, I had a really enjoyable upbringing there. 3 siblings, one of 4. Yeah.
Perfect. So tell me about your studies, especially the wine studies. What's the program like? What was intriguing to you about it? What were the biggest challenges?
Back then, they gave you a free iPad for studying sciences, so that was nice. It was huge. I remember the first year, they lump all the science students in, so there's no real discernment amongst the University of Adelaide campus. So I would say our chemistry course was like 400 students in the amphitheatre, and it was only by second year when you changed to the agricultural campus at Aubrey. That's the newer campus that they converted to sometime in the last 20 years. Prior to that, the degree goes back to, I think, like the 1850s. They used to call it the Roseworthy degree because it was out Barossa, Roseworthy way. And some still call it that, even though it's been at Aubrey for 20-something years now. But it's just located still technically in the Adelaide Plains area, which I think there is maybe 2 or 3 vineyards that remain. It's the city kind of limits. Penfolds obviously had the McGill estate. I'm not sure if they'd completely pulled it out or grafted. The university has a vineyard, which I actually did help plant back in when I graduated. And then there's one other producer somewhere. So yeah, campus is pretty central, and it's kind of on the border of the Adelaide Hills, heading up into the foothills as you head to the south. So well placed, and it's kind of shared with food science majors, other agricultural students. So you had a lot of like wheat farmers from rural South Australia, and then you start sharing agricultural topics. And there was, I think, because it was internally in the wine cohort, we were about, I want to say 60 maximum. Mm-hmm. So going into second year, I think you really found like a bit of a community at University in Sciences. I don't know where universities are at now because I've been graduated 7 years, but with COVID and everything, how online it is. But contact time was you're at uni every day. Mm-hmm. So you meet people and if you go to lectures, you have your 2 hours of lectures, 4-hour practicals each day. So you really befriend people, and I ended up moving in with those students and friends by the 3rd and 4th year, and I'd say that's when like wine passion really started to sink in. So, and you're getting a large demographic of people too. Like I was, 1 year out of high school, which is fairly young. Drinking age is 18 in Australia, so at 19, you've been drinking a year. So I guess that's a little different to here as well. Yeah, and then you have people in their late 20s, maybe early 30s as well, coming from experience, wanting the qualifications to progress in their careers. So you have this nice diversity of opinions of what you think is good, what they think is good, and everything in between. So I enjoyed that. Yeah, I had a really good time at uni.
What were the surprises for you about studying wine?
I think just like how beautiful science can be. One thing I was thinking of the other day was, I remember when we would do bud dissections in our first or second viticultural course, and you're using a larger microscope, not the fine, is it a macroscope maybe? I forget. It's like one that the naked eye can kind of see, but you're just dialing in on. You're using a razor to chip away the buds on a 1-year-old cane after pruning. And as you slice it away, you do it in slight layers, like razor thin, because you're cross dissecting the bud to the point that you're assessing its fertility by looking at kind of fetal inflorescences, like the baby grapes inside the bud. I remember just like a beautiful like joy moment of like, this is incredible. You're just like looking at a baby vine, like I didn't know you could do this. Little moments like that in sciences, I think, really kept me interested in sciences. I think that was still my focus as well, because I did like a mini thesis, we call it an honors, which not many students choose to do. Most people are more industry focused, whereas maybe I was coming from a sciences background, so kind of sciences was the inspiring thing, and then wine was the medium. Yeah.
What was your thesis on?
So I was considering this. I wish I'd done it now as well. They were doing matrices of soil profiles, studying a terroir Barossa project over multiple sites. But I wasn't that interested in looking at the soil microbiota back then, and kind of micronutrients and what might be influencing like regionality within, say, Barossa sites towards a larger study. So I decided to go for something a little more tangible that I could be out in the field, and I had good rapport, and I did a little summer internship with the viticultural faculty, who I consider very close. Cassandra Collins was my supervisor, and Roberta DeBay at the time. And yeah, Roberta had a project going, they were kind of testing their new viticultural app for assessing like canopy management. So essentially it was trying to make it more accessible and an industry use with, say, an iPhone or apps, integration of apps back in, what was that, 2016, I think? So you just take a photo of the canopy, and we're looking at factors of, can you measure canopy porosity as an indicator for potential vine health, or whatever indices you wanted to look at, and kind of figuring out what's the best way to take a photo. Do you take it looking at the canopy? Do you take it under the canopy? Would a drone over the canopy be better? So I think at the time we were finding under canopy gave you a better indication if you measured at the right time frame of the day that you didn't have the sun in the picture. So I remember that being a large part of the project, but then also trying to understand whether Australia deals with a lot of like hot climate viticulture, so kind of the opposite here, but it was how to delay ripening, or specifically like sugar ripening, to match up all your other parameters. And so I remember a test of one of the studies we were looking into was something in Italy, where they delayed sugar ripeness in Sangiovese by removing the mid-tier of the canopy. So my project contributed 1 year's worth of data. I didn't have any conclusive results, but I enjoyed the process. There's a lot of data entry, and a lot of like critical thinking on how you form an opinion, and just those are the kind of skill sets I learned through that. And also trying to put that in 5,000 words was a nightmare. So yeah, that was a great experience. And I think a lot of it was motivated by the people I had that were kind of inspiring me, because like I said, chemistry was more my interest in the beginning, but I couldn't really get into the sensory studies lab at the time. And I had these wonderful people in viticulture. So I was like, I want to focus on that. And we later, when I graduated, we went to a GESCO conference in Thessaloniki the year before I came to Oregon, that summer of July, I think it was 2019. And it was such a fun conference. First time seeing like a lot of academic professionals in a kind of academic delivery by day and then party by night over the week in Greece. So that was a fantastic experience. Yeah, there was a lot of very enjoyable communal moments with my studies of people. I think that attracts me a lot as well. Travel was a big factor for why I chose wine as well. I knew after my French exchange when I was 16 in high school that I wanted a career that allowed me to move around. Now I'm here, so.
So tell me about at what point in the process did you get into a winery? Did you start to get your hands dirty with the work?
I think in my second year, I realized that I didn't have any like practical or physical experience, and some skepticism that people would have about the degrees were that maybe they were too academic and they don't give you practical experience. So I remember them incorporating that in our fourth year, but nonetheless, I remember having those thoughts early on too. So we had a contract custom crush process a ton or two of my uncle's vineyard that I told you about. He would sell those grapes, I think initially to Hardy's and Treasury, like Penfolds picked them up points, but 1 or 2 tons we'd reserve and get a local winemaker. So I think in 2014 or 15, I just like worked the crush pad with him, and it was a very overwhelming experience. It wasn't the most structured winery, but he put through a lot of stuff. It was very impressive what he did. And then I think I was working tasting rooms that year. But then my first real vintage experience was Brokenwood, which was the wine prize that I won after my second year of university.
That you won?
Yeah.
Tell me about that.
I didn't know it was something you could win, actually. And then I was informed that I was in the running for it, I think. And then 3 months later, I learned that I won it. It was retrospective, though. It was I guess you could have planned for it, but it was, I think it was just your first year's grades. So I think maybe I was very recharged after my gap year and super inspired and dedicated. So I did really well in my studies. And I think it was a Dux of first year, I think, or an highest I can't remember the exact, but and it was an opportunity to work at Brokenwood. I'm not sure if you're familiar with the winery. They have a lot of industry ties, a lot of development. Ian Riggs, he's a well-respected man in the wine industry in Australia, and the Brokenwood were always they're based in the Hunter Valley out of Sydney. I think they started in the 70s, and a pivotal founder was James Halliday. I don't know if that name's ever come up, but he was our Robert Parker of Australia. And I think he was only an owner for a few years, and then the other 2 investors kept it. And Ian Riggs was the winemaker from back then and stayed on until I was there in 2018, and I believe he might have retired recently. And yeah, just the culture there was incredible. I think I was spoiled rotten on my first vintage because I think I was chasing that every other harvest. It was an incredible experience, really diverse harvest too. So they're based in the Hunter Valley. Graveyard is their estate block, and they work with a bunch of beautiful blocks around the Hunter. But then they also have a project, the Indigo Vineyard in Beechworth, which is a beautiful town in rural Victoria, 3 hours out of Melbourne, 6-hour drive south of the Hunter. They also make South Australian wine. I think it's the Rainer Vineyard in McLaren Vale. And then they even make WA wine. The wines made elsewhere are usually made in those places, and then they are either trucked up, usually as when they're going through malolactic, where they're less to transport, and they're just an incredible setup and a diverse experience for my first harvest. Hunter is so early. Some years, I believe they've harvested, January is the beginning. I believe they've harvested in the year prior. So in terms of vintage claims, I think it's posed issues before. So you're starting very early. I think January 10th, maybe we were picking. You finish Hunter fruit usually within a month. And then you have some orange fruit, I didn't even mention, higher region, rural New South Wales, Victorian fruit coming in. So just the experience through that was intense and so informative, so many different grapes you're working with, and you're producing a premium quality wine as well. So there's a lot of attention to detail. Stuart Horton was the winemaker, and Kate was the assistant. And just, you're with 4 other interns, also from various places. I believe we had 1 American, and you sleep in dongas, which are they're shipping containers converted into bedrooms. They have an aircon, you put a mattress in, you live on site, you have a private chef for the 10 weeks, you're eating incredible meals, you're working 12-hour days, but you're incredibly looked after. And then there's the once a week wine tastings we would have, like a Barolo night, a Rhone night, to just inform you about other world's wine regions. And you're drinking incredible wines from Riggs' collection, and it was such a privilege. And I think I appreciated it even more after working at a retail fine wine store the year leading up to that harvest too. That was 2018 I worked that. So 2017 I think I started working at Edinburgh Cellars in Adelaide. And they have an incredible collection. With your staff rates, you can afford to learn a little more if you split bottles with other wine friends and sit down and do your tastings. And yeah, there was a lot of wine learning going on towards that later part of uni that led into that industry experience. That was, incredible.
You mentioned earlier your palate took some time to build. So I'm curious about building your palate. What did you find yourself attracted to, and what did you find? How did you find sort of, I guess, your taste education? How did it progress?
Yeah, that's interesting. Well, in the beginning, not really having much of a palate. It was aromatically focused, so whatever smelt the nicest was the best wine, obviously. The weighting is different if you do a Wessex course, and the nose is only worth, 7 out of the 20 points. I was weighting that heavily. So I remember one of the first wines that was like marveling to me was, I think it was the Lady A aged Sauv Blanc from Tasmania. I just remember like getting lychee and coriander or cilantro in a wine. And aged whites, I think, have a little special place in my interest. And aromatic and complexity will always, like we were talking about the Riesling earlier, like it just excites me. It's so interesting and layered. So I remember that wine maybe in our first year of sensory studies, being like a bit of an aha, like, oh wow, wine's got some crazy stuff going on. And then, I think I just understood my palate wasn't as together because you're discussing in class like how you evaluate. I mean, that's how you learn. And someone saying this, that's not what I'm getting. That's absolutely incorrect. And so you learn where your errors lie. With it, you just have to taste and have a ton of conversations. And it was living with a lot of wine friends that I think really honed a palate, and just sharing, being brave enough to share an opinion and be wrong, or you're also trusting what someone else is saying too, and you're like, well, what's your credentials? So you got to sort a lot. But it takes so much time. Confidence in sharing opinion. I don't even know if I was that confident by Brokenwood. So I feel like it takes a few years. Coming from not starting out with it as, family teaching or,
What wines did you find yourself drawn to?
Aromatic whites were, aromatic reds less so, like juby juicy fruits in reds were of no interest. But whites, they couldn't just be like hyper aromatic, they had to have like some complexity. So oak was delicious, maybe leaning to over oaking in the beginning. I mean, I think that's an attraction for a lot of people in wine too. Oak is a very lush, beautiful, vanilla-y, complex contributor. So, very enticing. And then you're like, wait, no, I want more in these styles. So then, I think it took a little while to learn that like it's not specifically a variety that I'm like interested in. It's very much like either philosophy or a balance, striking a balance in wine. That's a hard one to say as well, because I feel like when you're talking about pairings, it's kind of nice if something favors a higher acidity or more residual sugar, but there's still a balance to be achieved regardless, I think. So I love wine in its own right, as its own thing to be appreciated, on a deck, watching a sunset with beautiful company. And then I love wine as pairings with food. I think the food pairings came later, and I very much put it on a pedestal of this has to be this like perfect thing, and you're very opinionated in your late teens, early 20s. And if I was to broad sweep, I'd say medium-bodied whites and reds with a good acid line, a firm backbone of tannin to a red, and something that kind of, evolves as you're drinking it. So many things fit in those categories.
Obviously, balance is a term we hear a lot in wine. Describe, from your perspective, a balanced wine.
It's got less to do with what you perceive in the beginning and more to do how it ends, I think. Especially the first impression. You can have something in your mouth and it throws off your interpretation entirely. So if you're not lucky enough to have enough to taste again, it can be disappointing. Mm-hmm. If you have a beer prior to a wine, that shoots my palate every time. Once you're on your second sip, just like evolution of like the obvious parameters like acidity, body, tannin, intensity, like flavor intensity. But I think, you understand it better once you've either swallowed or spat, because the impression afterwards, like bitterness will show itself, other factors that you could argue would throw a wine out of balance if they're tending to something undesirable. It's so hard because it's subjective. If someone's more bitter tolerant, they're not going to notice it. So it's a really hard thing to get everyone to agree on, I think. If we did, we wouldn't have the diversity of wine that we have. But for me, it's not having an overlasting impression of alcohol on the finish as well. I've been impressed by wines that are in the 15, 16 table wines, and it's the finish, just the interplay of the other characters, whether it's acid or mouthfeel or whatever, just cleans it up, and it's an enjoyable experience, I guess. I guess it's very personal. That's why kudos to those who try and teach and discern and put it to words and communicate it amongst others, because that's a really hard feat.
So you mentioned being treated very well at your first internship. Curious about, outside of that, tell me about the work you were doing, what you thought of it, and what was appealing enough about it to you to want to do more.
I think maybe being such a large setup as well, you don't get to touch everything. So you've learned 4 years of all this theoretical education, and I'm yeasting ferments and warming them up to temperature. Hunter Valley Semillon is the iconic style with their Shiraz. So I was put on whites for the first few weeks, and I guess, so they call you, they give you the nickname as well, Brains, because you got the high score for the prize. So there's a Brains from every year. So Brains was on yeasting because you're good at following procedures, and yeasting with temperatures and can really determine the success of a ferment if you nail your, because it's a lot of timing, a lot of temperature keeping. It may take you like 2 hours to seed your first ferment in the morning because you're passing it through a heat exchanger to get your juice up to temperature, and then you're building a yeast culture in the meantime, and just really technical. But then I was like, I want to be punching down reds, or I just wanted to touch everything, and so I did get a chance to over the 10 weeks, but there's always more that you want to learn. So I think I did a lot of yeasting to begin with, and then only 3 of us got sent down to Beechworth, which was a very cowboy winery, coming from the Hunter with 40-year-old, I think it was finished in the 80s maybe, 30-year-old winery, and then you're in this outdoor facility in Beechworth, and your winemakers aren't, no, we had an assistant winemaker there, but your original ones aren't, so you're very much left to your own kind of choosing, and I think I was just maintaining cold ferments down there, tweaking things, making sure the wines were ready to be sent down or sent up to the Hunter, and you're processing the fruit. They were big days. They were like 14-hour days down there. So that was a really wild experience, and that was only 2-3 weeks, and then I was sent back up to the Hunter, caught a flight all during harvest, and then then things were starting to kind of slow down, and then I got more red work in, and yeah, it scratched a lot of itches. So really touched, yeah. I guess we didn't do sparkling winemaking. And then there was Canberra fruit too, yeah. Oh yeah, we worked with Canberra fruit. Almost every region in Australia we made wine from. So it was very informative, yeah. And just all the ferments you get to taste, and they'd be set up in the winemaker's office or the lab. So once the winemakers were done, sometimes they'd be left there and you could taste through all the samples you'd collected for 2 hours that morning. Or a culture very much built on teaching and giving back. And very much appreciated. Very inspiring.
So as you're coming to the end of that, what were you thinking about for your next step?
There's a couple things missing as well. I also traveled a lot while I was studying. I did a French exchange 2016 to solidify the French I'd been learning for 2 years. And that was actually less wine focused and very much more like, I think I got a science course credited and 2 French components. But it was very much like, I want to improve my French, so I'm probably going to work in Europe when I finish. Let's go learn the language. So I spent 9 months abroad, 2016, I think. Semester in Strasbourg, was one of the 4 sister exchange universities in France. The only one relevant, really. If Montpellier was in there, I would have gone there, but that's an haute école, so it's a different kind of education. But it was Sciences Po in Paris, Grenoble, Strasbourg, and I forget the 4th one. And Strasbourg had a good science program. They had like buildings named after Pasteur, so very, very scientific and life science focused. So I did, what did I do? Plant physiology and biochemistry in French. I was very grateful that some of the exams were just multiple choice answers and not redactions or anything. So I passed and met a lot of Quebecois and a lot of other Erasmus students. Made a lot of friends in Europe. And then the next year, I actually went on 2 exchanges. One was the United Grapes of America tour, which was kind of what took me to the US. That was a very intensive 2-week program that was the first year they started it. And me and 15 other students started in the Willamette. It was 2 weeks. We did Willamette, drove up to the gorge, drove across the gorge to Walla Walla. I think we then passed maybe Yakima through the Cascades, like Saint Michel. Yeah, got Mont Saint Michel in my head. Through to Seattle, flew to Okanagan one night, then down to Sonoma, through Sonoma and Napa, finished in San Fran. It was like back to back, 3 or 4 tastings a day, maybe 1 or 2 days off to see Seattle and San Fran. And a little introduction prior and little projects we had to do to understand the US wine industry. And it was super interesting. And one of the wines that really led me to Christum in 2019, kind of answering your question, how we got here, was like a 2010, I think it was Louise, the 2010 Louise Pinot. And yeah, it was just a beautiful wine. I guess I hadn't seen New World Pinot like that. I was like, oh wow, this is quite impressive, and wanted to work there after. And then when I worked at Brokenwood, actually, because this was 2018, one of the interns had just come from Christum, so I was learning about her harvest experience there. So a lot of kind of factors were like leading to that. And then the US is quite hard to get a visa sometimes, so the J1 that they offered was only within a certain time period of graduating. So I was like, well, I guess if I want to work in the US, I should do it now. So I was like, yeah, I'll go 2019. So I knew I was going to work at Christum because I bugged Tom for months after graduating, and then locked it in, I feel like, months ahead. And then just had to fill in the in-between. And at the time, friends of mine were helping out Michael Hall up in the Barossa. So I was starting to meet Michael more frequently. He'd come to our house for tastings, and we'd have some dinners. And he was a smaller producer, very much like trained at some amazing estates. He was an ex-jeweler. he came into wine much later, I think in maybe his 40s, and then started working in the Rhone and Burgundy, and just had a ton of knowledge, was doing some really cool things, all small scale. So I could touch a lot of different things, making Barossa and Shiraz, Adelaide Hill Chardonnay. His Fumé Sauvignon Blanc was insane. Again, aromatic whites with complexity. And yeah, so I worked with him for that harvest in Barossa, had friends from uni up there, so it just all kind of fit. And then, yeah, I think I worked that until May or June, and then I was off to the Greek conference I told you about. Did a bit of travel through Turkey and Georgia. I studied with a Georgian friend who was born there, so his dad's in the wine industry there, so he had a very special kind of experience exploring Georgian wine regions. Kakheti, I think, is the Saperavi country. Tsvani and Racha, they do sweet chilled reds, which were very impressive. Yeah, and then I think did a Rhone trip finally because it was on my list. It was probably the last French wine region I hadn't visited, and then came over to the US.
It's a whirlwind tour.
Yes.
It's a lot of wine regions in a short amount of time.
Oh yeah. Most of the tours were like that, because the other tour I didn't tell you about was the Swiss-Spanish study tour, also in the same year as the American one. And that was 10 days in Switzerland in their French wine school, Changin, just not far from Geneva. So on the French side, and we did 3 of the main regions, Valais, Vaud. It's 8 years now. And they had a lot of like indigenous grape varietals. I had no idea about Swiss wine. And I mean, the price point, the labor, and it kind of stays in Switzerland or Europe. So, and then Spain. So then like Chacoli, in Logroño, Rioja, Ribera del Duero. And that one was like an architectural tour too. So you're visiting wineries that were like assembled by famous architects. So that was insane to see, just these like flower style things, and Guggenheim-esque wineries, and then down to sherry country in Jerez and finishing in Barcelona. So I had a lot of like inspiring wine experiences that I just jumped on through uni. Just worked a lot of part-time hours through uni to fund them, and take out more student loans so I could get them all in. Yeah, I maximized my university experience for sure. Yeah, very lucky.
So out of all those places you saw, Christum was the one you wanted to come work at after all of that. So what about the Willamette Valley or Christum specifically was that inspiring for you?
Well, my exposure to US wine at the time wasn't that great. It was that tour specifically, and I think we saw 4 wineries in the Willamette. I think Ponzi was in there. Sokol Blossom might have been the first. Argyle. Maybe one other. And there was something about, I guess the size of Christum. I think I never wanted to go, not that a lot of those are hyper commercial wineries, by no means. Sokol Blossom isn't, Ponzi. But Christum just felt like a right size and fit and detail focus, and very much honing in on Pinot, which I thought was really interesting, especially in a region that has built a decent reputation in Pinot Noir winemaking. And I guess, the profile and the style of the wine was in my interest, like a lot of aromatic complexity in their Pinots, a decent oak profile too, which I mean, we don't make wine here with oak, but I'm still attracted to oak. It's attractive. I think those factors probably led to it, and just knowing people who had also worked there and really enjoyed the experience. I feel like a lot of where you want to go as well can be very informed by others who have been there. Reputations and insider industry knowledge is always, I prioritize that more than just like the ideal of somewhere.
So tell me about your experience there.
At Christum? Mm-hmm. Oh, it was amazing. I mean, a lot of the friends that I have here now, and part of what inevitably brought me to Oregon was relationships I made during that experience. John, who connected us, Alana, my current housemate. you get to live on site at the house there, so you get a real community essence to it. You also spend a lot of time together because you're working and living together. But it's a beautiful thing, I think, especially if you're personalities that wouldn't usually cross. You still, I really appreciate diversity and open-minded opinions. So I like that element as well of harvest. And and then the winery. That wasn't Steve's last year, but that was Dan's introduction as well. So there was kind of a lot of dynamics changing as well in the winery. So that was interesting because you had just more opinions like in there, like Dan coming up from Literai and Steve having built Christum's reputation. It was super interesting, and it was kind of everyone's first year then too. Like Chris, their other winemaker now, and he started that year. Dan started that year. Everyone was new really, except for Steve. So seeing different philosophies too. Steve is very much like more relaxed and less like science trained, but then kind of almost like a surfer-esque mentality, like very laissez-faire and trust the process and takes probably more risks, I'd say. Whereas Dan was very like focused and super, detail oriented, and that's, I guess I'm come from more of a meticulous thing, so that was more my interest, but I was also wanting someone to kind of introduce me to more risk taking and seeing what that does, like risks that I personally wouldn't take, because academia can really like hone in on a very clean product that, you just don't challenge certain things. So that was a fantastic experience. There was an intense harvest too, because Pinot all kind of comes at once, and that's the bread and butter of the facility. So there was a lot of Pinot and not that much space at the time. I think they've developed it now. A lot of punch downs too, midnight punch downs. Where the magic happens. And it gave me I think I really also liked Oregon's cooler climate too. I explained how my hometown's quite hot, and I'm a very hot person, I guess. So Oregon just had this like mediating kind of calmness to it that I really enjoyed. Lush, green, kind of haunting. Reminds me more of Tasmania. And so that was super attractive and probably contributed to how much I enjoyed the experience, hikes and coming up to Portland. And Portland's food and wine scene is something that my hometown has that I deeply appreciate. Food's a big part of what I enjoy. Also feeds into the travel and cultural side of things.
So what came next?
Oh, COVID. Yeah, COVID.
I guess that did come next, didn't it?
Yeah, a lot of plans changed. I don't want to go too deep into the details, but my intentions were to come back and work for Lingua Franca. I was talking to Tamar because we'd visited that winery a couple of times, as John was close friends and obviously wanted to see other wineries in the area at the time. And they looked like they had a great show running as well. And so, really wanted to work with them, and we're in the middle of chats, and I think I was just, well, you could call it delusional, but at the time you're like, what is going on? Like in March and April with the announcing of everything. So I was like, I'll get to the American consulate. But the US finished up. I took some time. I went to the East Coast, went up to Canada for Christmas with a friend that I'd studied with, and then got to see New Orleans, which was high on the list, and a bit of Texas. And then, I was allowed to stay in the US another 6 months, but something told me I should do another harvest, which wasn't planned, because my plan was to stay in the US. And then I think, it wasn't so much COVID informing it, because that was January. So I was just talking to friends back home, and then a friend said they were looking for a lab technician at Shore & Smith. And Shore & Smith is a fantastic winery back home. Great setup, very passionate people, great wines. So I was like, well, that's a very lucky opportunity, had an interview over WhatsApp in, I think, a bar in Austin, and then was like, booked my flight home 2 weeks later, and I think I started late January. And that was another 6 months with Shaw & Smith. Very much like a Broken Wood size as well, winery, but more Adelaide Hills focused, and obviously they have their Tall Puddle brand. So working with Chardonnay and Pinot coming off of Oregon too was quite nice continuity. And a lab position, so an area that I was hyper confident in from my thesis and academia. So it felt almost like an easy ride, that one, because it was, just effortless work that I kind of slid into, but night shifts. So you form this new night community. So that was interesting, working night shifts. It's funny how easily you slip into it though, and they were very good at kind of changing your roster so that you slowly converted, like started later at 4, worked till midnight, and then 6 o'clock till 4 a.m. or whatever it was. So they run a great ship. Yeah.
What were your sort of longer term ambitions at that point?
I don't think they were that clarified. I think the kind of, it's going back now, but the 5-year kind of idea was gain enough experience to try and find a winery that I'd want to settle into, or if the opportunity arose to start a brand. And I think I wanted international experience, with travel meaning so much to me that COVID really challenged where I was going. And so it kind of felt like much more like I said, I planned Christum like a year ahead. It was very much more kind of not last minute decisions, but they were what am I doing? I guess, okay, I'll travel Australia now and get experience in other states. So speaking to Lingua Franca during Shaw & Smith harvest, thinking I'd be over there sometime July, August in 2020. Consulate, I think, was shut down. So I was like, okay. Picked up some pruning for Rockfords because I had a friend who had just started a viticultural full-time role there, someone I'd lived with, and very close friend, Gemma. So got to prune out in the Barossa on weekends. During the week for about 3 months. So that followed Shaw & Smith, and then I got some more vineyard experience. And I feel like any day spent in the vineyard is always enjoyable, just being outside, regardless of what the work is. Even if it's like raining, there's still like a sense of satisfaction you have after it. So I really enjoyed being in the vineyard. And then decided I could get some growing season experience. So I moved to Bellarine, was speaking with Nick Farr, and worked at By Far for that growing season from, what was that, maybe August, September until December. And I was starting to plan a little more, and Clonakilla was also a winery I was super interested in. I'd visited them when I finished at Broken Wood. They're a winery in Canberra. They're a cool climate region for Australia just because it's up in kind of the Blue Mountains, it's higher altitude. And they're notorious for, cooler climates, Syrah or Shiraz, that they have co-plantings with Viognier, so very much chasing like a Northern Rhone style. And they're very elegant, beautiful reds. So it was on my list of places to work. I'd previously spoken to Tim. I took the job with Michael Hull that year, so I didn't work for Tim in 2019. But then Tim offered me an assistant winemaking position for that harvest, so I couldn't say no. So I went on from Nick, and Nick knew Clonakilla well. And then, I really enjoyed my time in Geelong. I liked its proximity to the coast and the surf coast, and I like Victorian mentality to Melbourne and its focus on arts and food and wine, so I felt at home in Victoria. Canberra's like your DC, I suppose. It's Parliament, and so they have a good like food and wine scene, but it just felt maybe a little isolating. I loved my experience at Clonakilla, but I just didn't love Canberra. So after that 6 months, I was talking with Nick, and he was kind of alluding to a full-time role down there in the vineyard. And yeah, I think with COVID, and I was very unsure in the direction. I think Canberra kind of changed my mood about things, and I took the role with Nick, and then 2 weeks in, I decided it wasn't for me, and I kind of wanted to pivot and gain different skill sets. So and lockdowns and a lot of things were happening, forming that. So I decided to go back to SA, where I'm from, and was lucky to get a job in wine retail sales at East End Cellars, another fine wine retailer. I just kind of wanted to be more inspired again, missing the travel component. I wanted that diversity of opinions, and not that Australia doesn't have that, but I wanted an international one. I wanted to speak French, and so I kind of got that at the wine shop, like just being around different wine styles, and really enjoyed that experience with East End. And then, the grass is always greener, like I'm missing industry. So I made some wine that year to try and scratch that itch from the vineyard that my family planted. I thought, I'd buy some of the Shiraz and Grenache, and so I made a ton of each. An opportunity arose with some great friends down in the Vale. I have a very close community down there, and was lucky enough to make wine that year whilst working normal hours at a wine store. So that was a great marriage, until I heard about Marco's project later that year, and this is where we are now. It's a lot of.
That's a lot.
Well, it's COVID.
It's COVID.
And I'm reactive. I guess I really wanted to be overseas, doing something new, learning something new.
With all the background you had in academia, winemaking, viticulture, what was it like? What was retail like for you? What did you enjoy about it?
I would say I'm a personable person. So I really enjoy interactions with people. I guess that's my appreciation of travel too, and speaking to different kinds of people and connecting in different ways. So you got that on a daily. That was probably my favorite part of retail, is just the customer. It's usually what a lot of people hate, but I enjoy it. Especially if you can like help someone make a decision on something they don't know, just having this backlog of wine knowledge and being able to use a lot of that to help someone make a decision was very rewarding. They were probably my favorite part, just interacting with customers and making them happy, service you provide.
So tell me how you came across Marco's project.
It was actually, so my friend Sam, who you've also interviewed, we met at Lingua Franca during that brief period of visiting them in my Christum harvest. And then Sam she didn't follow me to Adelaide. She had her own job with Torbreck, but I noticed that she was coming to Adelaide when I was going home for Sher & Smith. And I think when you're traveling, you understand like it's really nice to meet open-minded people and people who just want to share and experience things. So yeah, when you're away from a lot of people, you really appreciate those that like welcome you in. And so I was in that space and returning home, and I saw Sam was just where I was, and I really liked the brief interactions we had. And so we connected in Adelaide. I was like, you're on my turf, I'm going to show you around. And we kind of crossed our Sher & Smith groups and Barossa groups. And it's a great time as well if you can get time off in Adelaide during harvest, because it's the Fringe Festival, which is our arts festival. And it's just the city comes alive. It's a city a similar size to Portland, but a little sleepier, but not from February till June, May or June. You have like Fringe Festival, Adelaide Festival, and then you have like the, what do we call it? It's a kind of food festival. And it's just, a great time to be there. So a great time to be out and about, beautiful weather, trying local wines, meeting people, and beautiful beaches. And so Sam and I really connected then, and we stayed close friends, just over WhatsApp and kind of talking about where we were going. she was kind of doing crazy things too, changing jobs and chasing different harvests. So very much in similar positions in life. And then she told me about Marco's project and said, this guy's really interesting. And I think it might be a good fit. He was looking for a winemaker. So I'd been at East End a year at that point, and I think I realized maybe I wasn't going to learn too much more in retail, and I wanted to learn more and grow. So it was an interesting opportunity. But I was like, I want to hear about the project. So I committed to coming over for a month. And Marco, Christina, and I met, and we made 2 ton of Pinot and a 1.5 ton of the Botrytis Chardonnay, and I guess the project was really interesting, and I really enjoyed just working with Marco, and he's such a personality and such good company, and we share similar tastes and wine interests, and there were just a lot of things that were coming together. So I thought, well, this is the opportunity I guess I'm looking for. And it seems like a diverse enough role that, we're still fleshing things out. So there was a bit of like marketing I was helping with in the beginning, and just learning different aspects of the business. It's been a great opportunity and haven't regretted it. Yeah.
When Sam introduced you to the idea, to Marco, and to the idea, what was the project as you understood it? What was exciting about it to you?
I think the kind of challenges to styles that Marco wanted to do were so foreign to me, and I have like my ideal winemaking opinions on styles that I'd like to make, and they're very much informed by like, I guess it's better answered by understanding like what I appreciated in wine as well over time philosophically. Like it was very, unscientific. I was like meticulous, like it's got to be this way. University's telling me it's this way. And then as you get older, you start to form your own opinions, and you see more contradictions to the rules, and you're like, well, they do it that way, and that's pretty interesting too. And so maybe there's not just one, it's not black and white, there's a lot more gray, and the gray is kind of exciting. And I think meeting Marco and seeing his openness to pushing different ideas was something I really wanted to bring about. And that, I think, was a big interest of his project, was obviously the Botrytis white styles that we're trying to make. And reds that are classically always aged in oak, like Pinot notoriously is always in oak. And can we still make an incredible product with these beautiful amphora that I've just come to love as we're working with them? Just the longevity of them, you can clean them really well. And they offer the maturation that oak offers. All of those elements contributed to the decision. And then, of course, my previous experience with Oregon wasn't, it's upping myself and moving country, but I already had some incredible relationships here. It didn't feel like an entirely new start. It felt like something quite comfortable to move into, and a pretty special part of the US from what I'd already seen. So those things also really influenced the decision.
So tell me about you mentioned kind of coming over for a trial. Tell me about that the first wines you made together. What did you think of the process? What did you think of the potential? Well,
unfortunately, actually, I didn't make the Chardonnay. I came back to the Chardonnay once the visa was approved, but I had to leave before the harvest. So I can't comment too much on the Chardonnay, but just I think the quality of the fruit we were working with was also super exciting. Like Jim's blocks just have this intensity to them. It's just an incredible sight. And I guess seeing more and more Pinot, you kind of get to understand just innate quality. Like when you see it, it's kind of intensity and balance showing up quite effortlessly. And I guess, yeah, I'm like, oh, I guess this is another addition. Like, I also, one philosophy Marco and I share is our minimalism, in that we don't really want to intervene. And so when you're working with beautiful fruit, like Jim's in the beginning, and the site we're planting seems to fit the mold. So I'm super excited about where it'll go. That's something I wanted to work with. It's, if you can just steer its course and not mess it up, like, you can have a beautiful product. There's so many different ways to make wine. Like, I have such respect, and I feel like I can perform a lot of the alterations to make wine, and you can make very balanced wines like that. But there's something to the minimalism and the approach to it which brings out, I guess, kind of longevity or complexity or other elements that are hard to just tweak or add. It kind of feels like the more you touch it, the more potential there is to ruin it a lot of the time. And yeah, I think Marco and I share that. And so that was a really good fit as well, for finding a place to kind of settle as well, because, you know, I'm jumping around, but very much looking for something to build into. So
let's talk about that a little bit. Let's talk about the building you've done here and the wines you've made here that have been made here. When we talked to Marco talked a lot about a lot of experiments and a lot of things that didn't work out well enough to your standards. Mm-hmm. So tell me about that process for you, and about the idea of finding the standard you're aiming for.
I think you don't really know until you see it in the glass. You have an understanding, like, when you're assessing fruit and those parameters, but a lot of things can happen until you have it closer to bottle. So you don't really know, you hope, but you're honing it until then. So, like, if you take the Amarone, for example, we had to make changes to that due to unforeseen over drying and things like that. So it was, once we were starting to make those changes, we knew it didn't fit into our philosophy of what we're trying to do with BHN. So inevitably, it's not a good fit, but it's still a very interesting wine. So it's a great experiment and learning to when you have a different product. We've been fortunate enough in the Pinots that we've been working with from Jim's block. They seem to be the continuous successes. Chardonnay 23 was a bit of a challenge with botrytis, and that's something we're trying to work towards, making botrytis consistent, but that's a challenge in its own right that we are figuring out. And we're noticing more in Riesling that being more endemic to botrytis, I'm far more interested in working more with varietals now that are like going to be more endemic to botrytis. Of course, you can inoculate or create the conditions in the vineyard, but then those things also feel like, well, how many manipulations are we making? Why, if we can find those that are already well suited to it, why would we not work with that? So some other varieties like Sauvignon Blanc as well as an interest. So, and I think Chenin, I'm still yet to convince Marco, but I think Chenin has potential. So.
Yeah, Chenin didn't come up in the other interview, so I'm not sure you definitely got a little ways to go there yet. Tell me about I guess for you mentioned obviously you have your sort of textbook training of wine and how to make like good, clean wine. Now you're sort of intentionally introducing botrytis, but also doing it in a way that is completely unique for a product that's unique. So I'm curious about how kind of wrapping your head around that, and then how you approach it as a winemaker.
It's difficult. Like wrapping my head around it, I feel like I've learnt to take more risks. I think that was kind of stuff I started to learn when I worked with Steve, and then even Clonic Killer, actually, just pushing boundaries of how far you can leave something before you intervene. And I feel like a lot of those roles prepared me for this, where like older me would have freaked out and be like, no, we have to we have to intervene at this point. Like the fruit is not a beautiful look, like botrytis fruit is not a beautiful sight. Like it's, but the product you get when it's right is incredible. So learning to accept a bit more oxidation or oxidative handling in the style and seeing that develop into something quite interesting still challenges me in the role, and I'm still understanding these things as we're doing it. But I guess we're seeing results in them, and so we're kind of following, well, what's leading to that success? Did we need to intervene, or did we need to top that vessel, or is that slight oxidation while it's still on skin's okay? Because after you press, there's a different integration of oxygen, and because it's a strong aromatic varietal, it's got this new complexity to it that's bringing in sherry qualities, but you haven't lost all that the varietal has. Like it's not Jura, it's not aldehyde, but there's elements of it there. Is that bad? Is that it's complex and interesting, and you still have all the other supporting elements? And then the botrytis complexity itself is something to behold. It's like, yeah, marmalade and ginger, and when you get it, you tasted something, it's exciting. So I don't know if I answered your question, but it's previous experiences allowed me to step back to kind of see what can happen. And I think what we learned, say with like our 23 Chardonnay, was that the botrytis wasn't there, and you're starting to see some other things set in, and it's another affirmation of like your quality is very much set in the vineyard. It's always something I've believed as well, but it's just another proof to it. Is like, was that botrytis, or was there too many other influencing microbes growing out there that it wasn't. So that's why we're kind of focusing a little more on, well, how can we be more consistent with the botrytis in the vineyard to reduce that? But it's a harder area to address because everyone avoids it like the plague. I think some people accept some level of botrytis in whites is nice, but they're pressing that off. What are you doing when you're macerating it with skin contact? It's still an understanding of what's going on. And challenges for me as well, like was understanding kind of Marco's thresholds on, say, haze. Haze was drilled into me as like a giant no-no. Like, you do not send out a final product that has haze. But I think as well, the kind of, I don't even want to define the natural wine scene, but that has, I think, challenged enough perspectives now, and there's an understanding that you don't have to be this clean-cut thing to have something good necessarily. And so I still want to get rid of the haze, but accepting that it's okay and you still have a great product is something else I'm learning. And a lot of that is with Marco because he's more daring as well. And I feel like I bring a lot of the like grounded theory to it while still wanting to experiment. And Marco wants to push the boundaries and is bringing a lot of like the innovation and excitement. So in a lot of ways, it's a good match.
We talked to Marco about this too, and I'm curious on sort of your perspective on this, about sort of all the experimentation you've done. Are there things that you have tried that you're excited about? What have you not done yet, or what has not been tried yet that you're excited to try?
I'd like to incorporate a little more like de-stemming into our botrytis fruit. I'm skeptical of how much of a, not negative contribution, but just what a stem's doing when the vine's that lignified after botrytis. It's already, you could argue, it's just something I'd like to trial side by side. For one, I didn't even think about this. I'd like to see some more larger format oak with our amphora as well, and that's just my my oak wants. And I don't think Marco's entirely against it, but we're enjoying the success of the amphora. So what else? I wouldn't, maybe a little more de-stemming incorporation into, I love whole cluster ferments, especially in reds. But I also like getting a fermentation started, and I feel like we could achieve that more if we de-stemmed a slight portion in each batch to kind of protect the whole cluster a little better. And just little tweaks every year. You kind of have an idea, and I've got a book of them, but I didn't revise. They're just some, for example. Yeah.
You also talked about the sort of the dried fruit experimentation last year. I'm curious about where you see that going.
I think it'll depend on finding the right fruit sources as well. I think that was one of the limiting factors of the success. We did not anticipate how quickly they would dry. I guess most of our Policella doesn't use dehumidifiers. But I think if we were to entertain it again, we're looking for better farming practices and ideally more vine age. And I think the Grenache has a lot of potential as a varietal for it. It's just quite pretty and floral, and it's like earlier picks, and it's really interesting to see that on that wine now, because you're getting this kind of like youthful complexity with a lot of the weight of a fuller bodied wine. And Grenache doesn't have the color density as well, so it almost looks like a rosé. And some sites for rosé too. So more experiments with that to come.
What else are you looking ahead to, either sort of on a personal or professional level? What else is on the horizon that you're excited about? I would love a little side project, inevitably. I'm really excited to see where this project is going. So it's very much focused on this at the moment. And having started some winemaking prior, it's kind of when the opportunity arises. So if that were to come up when we're better established here and we've got more feet on the ground and more things in place, and I can find some space to carve out some styles, I'd love to work with some potential Gamay from the valley. And I don't think I want to play in the territory of Pinot and Chardonnay. I feel like we have a lot of strong producers in that space. Marco's probably informing that with his trying to challenge the way we're doing these things as well. So look to evolve something different. There's plenty of people nailing what's being done, and I trust them to do it. Yeah. Tell me about the Oregon wine industry as you've gotten to know it a little bit. What are your kind of impressions of the people here, the wines they're making, and maybe where the industry's headed? I
feel like there's a real community element to the industry here. I feel like everyone is, quite convivial from those I've met. I mean, I feel mine's very tapped into when I started at Christum, and I don't know if I've expanded much further out of the connections I made through that, especially being based in Portland kind of limits the exposure, but sourcing more fruit this year and meeting more growers is kind of changing that. And it feels like there's a lot of innovation as well. I think a lot of like newer world wine regions have that, which I love. It's you get to push things, and like John's brand as well. We're seeing tons of other varietals successful so long as you have the right hands touching them. It's like, I'm talking maybe just wines of intrigue, or I'm talking wines that match philosophies that I'm interested in. Whether they're good is kind of subjective. So, but those things excite me, seeing that innovation with producers who have a ton of experience and playing with varieties that you're not really sure. You've only seen it maybe in a couple projects that were just kind of projects and maybe didn't have the full heart in them. So when you see quite passionate winemakers playing with those fruits, I think you see different potentials and different understandings of where their origins, like in Europe, how they might have made them, and can you make something in that vein of style, or can you change it and it's still an impressive product? And those things are exciting.
That's all the questions I have for you today. Anything I didn't ask that I should have? Anything we didn't talk about that you wanted to talk about?
It would just be food. Yeah, cooking and food.
Definitely a friend of John's, I can tell. There's no question about that.
Oh yeah, we try and do weekly dinners.
He keeps threatening me with like a all Portland restaurant interview, which I'm like, okay.
I mean, that's a great idea.
That's pretty fun, actually.
It is a fantastic idea. I feel it's as diverse as, it's more diverse than the wine industry in the Valley, I feel. So many great restaurants.
Okay, well, thank you so much. Taking the time, sharing your story with us. Thank you for setting us up with Marco as well. It's been an interesting and awesome day here at the winery. Appreciate that. Go ahead and let you off the hook.
Cool. Thank you.